Good evening, and welcome to the first of 3 community discussion forums. I purposely put this mask on tonight to show you what each student will be receiving when they come back to school. I'm not sure if I'm close enough, but we have a little night head on the side, and most of them will be actually green instead of white. I'm going to take it off now because, as I'll talk about in a little bit, the children will be able to take their masks off in class. As you can see behind me, we have a classroom that is socially distant, and all these desks are 6 feet apart. So they will be able to take their mask off when they get in the classroom. I'll do my best tonight to answer everyone's questions. Quite a few people sent questions ahead of time, but feel free to ask any questions that you have. You can type your questions in the YouTube live box during the broadcast. It's going to be a little different than the ones we did before. This time, obviously, we're going to be talking about opening rather than closing. And I'm sure everyone knows the governor gave us the go-ahead to open school. We were asked to provide a plan, and you can find that plan on our website at www.ccsnights.org. We spent a great deal of time developing our plan in hopes that we'd be able to open school. We developed a task force team to come up with a plan that would get our kids back to school 5 days per week and get us back in the safest possible way. Our COVID-19 task force team was made up of administrators, teachers, students, our school nurse, our building and grounds supervisor, our transportation supervisor, our technology director, our food service director, our counselors, medical professionals, public health, the Lewis County manager, Lewis County emergency manager, and the Lewis County Hospital. I want to thank all of those people who were part of putting this plan together. It was a great deal of work. Each member had one single focus in mind, and that was the safety of our staff and our students. I'm going to start with questions that were sent in ahead of time. A lot of these questions were very similar, so if I don't address your exact question, I hope I will at least get to the point you were trying to find. There were just so many that were the same rather than repeating them. Please don't hesitate to call me if you have any questions or concerns when we're done. I'd love to talk to anybody. We can talk for as long as you'd like. Also on our website is our plan, and in that plan are frequently asked questions, and a lot of those came from this tonight. So we'll start with our first question. We'll start with the topic of masks. Does my child have to wear a mask? All students will need to wear a face covering while on the bus, entering school, in the halls, and any time social distancing of 6 feet can't be maintained. They can choose to remove their mask while in the classroom at their desk. All desks in our school will be 6 feet apart. Next question was, what happens if a student refuses to wear a mask? Because it's required, except for anyone who has a medical exemption, we will treat it like insubordination and follow our code of conduct. Next question is about temperatures. Does my child need to have their temperature taken daily? And the question to that is yes. Temperatures will be taken prior to boarding the bus, when arriving by car, or walking. Their temperature must be 100 degrees or below to enter the bus or enter school. If they are not, they will have to be sent home at that time. All students 12 and under must be accompanied to the bus by an adult. Next question, what if a student or staff member shows signs of COVID-19? They will be sent to our isolation room, and a parent will be called to pick them up. There are 3 ways they can return to school: a note from the doctor, a negative COVID-19 test, or being home for 10 school days. What if a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19? The first thing that happens is public health will notify us. They will know before we do. They will quarantine that individual, and they will begin contact tracing. Presently, contact tracing will be done anyone that's 6 feet from the positive person for more than 10 minutes. They may change that to what they are calling approximate tracing, which would require anyone in the class to be quarantined. All of those decisions will be made by public health. Are schools required to provide random COVID-19 testing to staff and students? Random COVID-19 testing is not required for our students and our staff. Public health will direct us when anyone needs to be tested. There was some initial confusion. Our governor spoke about that and said that we were going to do random testing of students in school. That was incorrect. He changed that a couple of days later and followed public health's recommendation. Presently, public health is only testing symptomatic individuals. When a COVID-19 vaccine does become available to public health, will it be required for students to attend school, and will teachers and staff be required to get the vaccine? That decision will be made by the Center for Disease Control, similar to the required shots that students have to come back to school versus the flu shot. Obviously, if it's the flu shot, nobody will be required. If it's a required vaccine, similar to mumps, measles, and so forth, then the answer would be yes. What cleaning and disinfecting efforts are being made to help decrease the risk of spreading of COVID if it were to be present in the building? The building has been cleaned and disinfected better than it ever has before. We actually had since March 13 to accomplish that. Pre-K through 8 will be in their own cohort all day and at their own desk. They will not be sharing a desk or a space with anyone. 9 through 12 will be changing classrooms, and all desk, chairs, and high-touch areas will be disinfected after each period. What is our plan for busing? That's one of our biggest problems right now, and we're still working on that. We can fit 22 students plus their siblings on a 66-passenger bus. And siblings are allowed to sit together. They do not have to socially distance. We are asking, actually begging, anyone who can transport their children to school to please give us a call or email me, sconnell@ccsnights.org. If you can do that, that would be a huge help, because right now I think we only have 2 buses that are under that 22 number. Will you be busing village students as you have in the past? Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. We cannot do that and meet the social distancing requirement. Will remote learning be available for elementary students? So we've made the decision to live stream all of our classes, elementary, middle, and high school. Different than in the spring, all students that are not in school will be expected to follow their regular school day remotely. So you will get a schedule for your student, and if they choose to stay home, or if you choose to have them stay home, they will be following their regular schedule. Again, unlike before where they had certain times they met with their teacher, they'll be expected to be available in class at 8:07 and follow that through the day. They'll be able to hear and see their teacher and interact with their classmates. Obviously, it won't be as good as being in the room, but it's the best that we can offer for remote people. We ask that if you choose to keep your child home, to please call school. It's going to be similar to any year. If you have somebody, a child that's out on a medical excuse, it isn't going to be here, we just need to know so we can share our expectations with you. Will my child be forced to come to school if COVID testing is required? Well, as mentioned before, COVID testing will not be required, and no one is going to be forced to come to school. Parents can choose to keep their children home, but as mentioned before, you need to call school and let us know so we can make plans for that. Next question is, will distance learning, JCC and BOCES, still be available to our students? Yes, all BOCES programs will still be available in person, and JCC will be using Zoom to deliver their content. What will a typical day look like in elementary, middle, and high school? Well, all elementary and middle school students will be cohorted, and a cohort is a group of students. In pre-K through 8, the cohorts will be together all day and not interact with any other students. And that's specifically done for if we were to get a positive case, it's much easier for public health to do their contact tracing if they've only got to deal with 12 students and not the entire school. So cohorting is a big way to make sure that if we do get a case, it does not spread through our school. Unfortunately, 9 through 12 cannot be cohorted because of the different career paths, and so they will be changing rooms. Different than K through 8, Ninth graders, most of them will be together all day, but once they get in 10th and 11th and 12th grade, some kids are taking an extra math or advanced in science, so it's impossible for us to cohort those students. But all 9 through 12 rooms will be disinfected after each period. How many students spaced 6 feet apart will fit in a classroom? We can fit 16 students in our elementary rooms and 12 students in our high school and middle school rooms. And if you look, this is an elementary room. You're unable to see a few desks that are in front of me, but this room will hold 16 students 6 feet apart. Will hand dryers be replaced with paper towels in the bathroom? And the answer to that is yes. What services will be available to elementary students, AIS, speech, etc.? Yes, they will. AIS will be delivered in the classroom. Speech, OT, and PT will be provided at an alternate location. If we decide to remote learn at home, can they return to school at the end of the marking period if we decide we want them to? Right now, our rooms are pretty much full with everybody that we have. And we've been getting a lot of people calling and requesting to enter their students into our district. I think people found out that we were one of the few schools that is bringing everybody back 5 days a week, and it became very interesting to them. So the answer is, if distancing and masking requirements are relaxed, you certainly can bring them back. We would not have to put our desks 6 feet apart, and we would have plenty of room. Or if the classroom that your child in is small enough to do that and there's enough room, then that would be available as well. Will updates be made to the ventilation system? We will not be updating our ventilation system. Our system is only 9 years old. We have a geothermal heating and cooling, and in each room there's a heat pump. Each heat pump has a MERV 8 filter. MERV is the minimum efficiency reporting value. The higher the MERV, the better, and more stuff it takes out of the air. We have been in contact with our vendor who installed the system, and the best our system will hold is a MERV 9. And they feel there would be an insignificant difference between the two and not really necessary to change what we're doing. Will we still have 4-H after-school program? We certainly hope so. We're going to be meeting with Cornell Cooperative Extension tomorrow and to talk about what that will look like. Will there be driver ed? Unfortunately, we've had to cancel driver ed for the first semester. Hopefully, again, if social distancing gets relaxed, we will be able to have it second semester. Will students have gym class and specials? Yes, but they will all look a lot different than they did when we left on the 13th of March. In physical education, students are required to maintain a 14-foot distancing because of breathing harder and the running that they'll be doing. It's more likely they'll be exposed if someone were to be positive. In pre-K 8 PE, they'll be in their cohorts, so they will carry on just like they were in a classroom. They still have to maintain 6 feet, and that's why I say PE will look a lot different. For those of you that had PE class and games of tag and sporting events and things like that, obviously the PE teachers will not be able to do that. There'll be more aerobics and things like that will go on. 9-12 will not have access to the locker room, so PE will look a lot different. They will be having it in their clothes that they wore to school. Pre-K 6 music and art will take place in the classroom. Will students have recess? Yes, but only with their cohort and only one cohort at a time. We will be making a recess schedule, and the playground will be disinfected after each cohort is on the playground. Will there be sports? Presently, the start date for fall sports is September 21st, but again, that decision will be made by the governor. So that concludes all of the questions that were sent in. Tony, we have 3 questions.
We do. Our first question asks, can you further explain the temperature checking before entering the buses and the school?
So what we intend to do, at least for the first few weeks, is to put an aid on our bus so the drivers do not have to do that. So when your child approaches the bus, the aid, we have the type of temperature checks that you put your wrist under, and it immediately gives a temperature check. So when the student steps on the bus, we'll make sure that it's under 100, and the aide will say, and again, we're going to have assigned seats on the bus. So the aide will show them to their seat, and obviously after the first few days, they'll know where that is. Anybody that comes in a car, you'll be temperature checked as soon as you step out of the car, and we have handheld temperature checks that you aim them at the forehead, and they're instantaneous as well. And if you're 100 and under, you'll enter the building. And we'll give you more details as time goes on about where you'll enter the building. Right now, we're thinking of probably having 5 or 6 different entrances so that temperature checking can happen quicker. So, and anybody obviously walking too, they will get temperature checked as they enter the building. And with hopes, we'll go the rest of the year and everybody will enter and we'll have no issues.
Our next question asks, will the school ensure students have access to water throughout the day?
Yes, that's a great question. So we're going to turn all of our traditional drinking fountains off, but we have, I think, 3 or 4 bottle filling stations that will be able to be used. So they can have water, fill it up, bring it to class, and we just don't want the kids touching the buttons or putting their face down close to the water fountain. So they'll be turned off.
Our next question, we have some rolling in right now.
Good.
So our next question asks, what will lunch look like?
So all students, actually right now, all students will be eating in their classroom. We're trying to make it work so maybe our pre-Ks and Ks could eat in the cafeteria. We're concerned about them carrying their lunches from the cafeteria to their classrooms. So we're working through some ideas of maybe delivering to those classes or putting their food in a container. So if they were to drop it, it would be okay. So I feel like a lot of these questions I'm going to say we're not completely sure on yet. We're still working through a lot of different things, and lunch is one, but the majority of our kids will be eating in the classroom, and their teacher will be eating with them, so they will have supervision in that classroom as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. So our next question has to do with cleaning between periods. Some cleaners require a couple minutes of sitting on the surface to work properly. So what type of time are we giving between periods?
So right now, all of our periods are 3 minutes. What we're doing for the first 4 days of school is we're just going to practice everything. There won't be a lot of teaching going on. We're going to go through hand washing, how we walk in the halls, how we get our lunch, how we get our temperature checked. We're not really sure how long that's going to take with 450 students entering our building. So those first 4 days, we're going to learn a lot of different things. Another one of those is how long does it take us to clean between classes? The plan we have right now is we're going to have disinfectant in the room. As soon as the students leave, the teacher is going to spray down all desks, all seats, all high traffic areas. And then as students enter, we will have paper towels there. They will wipe their desk off. Paper towel goes under their desk. They'll dispose of that as they leave the classroom. So everything will get sprayed down. I would guess it's probably going to take about 5 minutes. So after they get sprayed, there'll be 3 to 4 minutes before they will get wiped down. And actually, the disinfectant that we have purchased recommends a 2 to 3 minute wait before you wipe.
Our next question involves pre-K, and it asks, can our pre-K students do off-site learning?
That's a great question. I almost venture to guess no. I will do a little bit more research on that and talk to our teachers. Pre-K, as you know, is so much about interaction, and we're actually following the early childhood regulations where they will have to be masked on the bus, have to be masked in the hall, but can take their mask off and do not have to keep 6 feet of social separation. I'm sure anyone that's had a 3 or 4-year-old realizes that having them stay 6 feet apart, they don't have desks, they have tables. So to do that remotely, my first reaction would be it would be very difficult because a lot of what they do is interacting with their classmates. But if you want to give me a call at school, anytime, I will talk to the pre-K teachers and see what their feeling is about that.
Our next question is, will there be an open house?
So that's in the planning right now. It will not be your traditional open house. What we plan on doing is, at least for pre-K 5, is to have open house just with your child's cohort. So we will invite in one parent to come in, and that way we can socially separate. You'll get to see what the room looks like, talk to the teacher, and we will also live stream those. So if mom comes, dad can watch that from home. And that's how we plan running open house. We think it's important that we get our parents in the building so you can actually visually see what your child's day will look like. You know, what will going to lunch look like to pick their lunch up? What will walking to PE look like? Our halls will actually have arrows down one direction one side, other direction the other, so we'll be making sure that kids are walking in single file and not crossing paths in the hallway. And we've done a lot in the high school to make sure that we're only going to have one group of students in the hall at a time, so we'll be dismissing classes on a time schedule about 20 seconds apart, so that doesn't happen. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do with 6-8 open house yet, but stay tuned and we'll come up with something.
Very good. Our next question asks, what will be the turnaround time for results of the COVID test?
So we met with public health yesterday, and they're experiencing anything from 3 days to 2 weeks. So if a child were to be sent home and the family chose to get a test because they didn't want to stay home for 10 days or didn't have the ability to get to a doctor, right now we're being told as long as 2 weeks, 3 days as long as 2 weeks. That could change. Hopefully the administrator from the hospital yesterday talked about possibly getting some rapid tests that we would be able to use.
Okay, so our next question asks, what will breakfast and lunch times be like? It looks like you kind of already answered the lunchtime, but what about breakfast?
So breakfast is going to be a grab and go. The student will go down, obviously masked in the hallway, grab their breakfast and bring it back to their room and eat it in their room.
Will all elective courses be available, or will there be restrictions?
At this time, we're able to have everything we've had before. Some of them might not be offered only because we didn't have enough students sign up, with the exception of driver ed. Thank you, Tony. So first semester driver ed is canceled now just because of the social distancing issue.
Do we have any kind of an estimate as to when the decision will be for fall sports and whether or not they can be played?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer. I know how important sports are. A lot of our kids do very well in school because they're motivated to not be on the ineligible list, and they're motivated to go to practice at the end of the day. So I am crossing my fingers that can happen. And I think my gut feeling is if we get through the first couple of weeks and we have no issues and no positive tests, then they may safely be able to make that decision. Unfortunately, again, that's not ours. That's going to be a decision made by the state, but I'm certainly rooting for it.
Very good. Next question asks, if a positive case occurs, how will it be determined if other individuals who had contact will need to be quarantined as well?
Sure. So public health is going to do all of that. I made a mistake in a meeting and said, well, if I find out somebody is positive, I'm calling public health. They made it very clear to me that they will know before we do. And if they have a positive case, they're coming to us and saying, what class are they in? What seat did they sit in? Who was sitting next to them? Who else could they have come in contact with? And as I mentioned before, right now, the standard is 6 feet for 10 minutes or more. That could be changed. The room we sit in right now, they could say this whole room had to be quarantined if there were a positive case. That has not been put into their protocol yet, but they mentioned yesterday that there was a very good chance that could happen.
We have a question about AP courses, specifically AP Science, Advanced Science for 8th graders. And that question is, how is 8th grade going to work? How is 8th grade Advanced Science going to work if 8th grade is still in a cohort?
Right. So that is the one time that those students will come out of their cohort and they will be mixing with the ninth graders, but they still will be social distance in that class. Wherever that class meets, if that class is 12 or under, they will meet in a classroom. If that class is 12 or over, we have three rooms in our building. The upstairs, which for a lot of parents that are watching, it would have been the old study hall. It's now Mr. Russell's room, and it's actually the size of 2 rooms. That is one room we're setting up for the overflow if we need. We're splitting the gym in half and making half of the gym a classroom that can hold over 30 students. And we're also using our makerspace room. That's the room off of the library, which is also a larger room. So if the cohort that they're in is over 12, they will have class in one of those rooms. But again, socially distanced from all of the ninth graders.
Is it safe to assume that we're going to use the same policy for advanced science in 7th grade too?
That's correct.
All right, great. Our last question, our final question for now, is are grades 6 through 12 using the regular lockers?
So we are not going to be using lockers. We found over the course of the past few years, most students don't use them anyway. So we are not going to do that because that would actually be a problem with social distancing, and we have to stay in the halls and keep people apart. So we will not be using them. Again, if they were to back off some of the social distancing requirements as the year goes on, then potentially we would be reissuing lockers.
We just had another one come on in.
Keep them coming.
All right.
I want to try to make everybody feel as comfortable as possible.
If a class has to quarantine, will distance learning take place?
Yes, we will still live stream the classroom with no one in it.
And how will grades 9 through 12 travel from class to class while minimizing contact?
So they'll be masked anytime, as I mentioned in the beginning, anytime they're in the hallways, they're masked. And I also mentioned that we will have arrows. We'll have a line down the middle of the hallway. One side will have arrows going in one direction, and the other will have arrows going in the other direction. And for a visual for that, if you can picture the upstairs of our school, we will be dismissing all the schools on the right-hand side first, and they will be either crossing the hall because they may have to go the other direction, or they'll be maintaining the same direction that they were going, and they will move out of the way, and then we will dismiss the next class, same thing. So nobody's going to be crossing, and they'll all be walking, and we're going to be asking that they walk single file. Not necessarily 6 feet apart, but certainly single file so they're not side by side with someone.
Will we promote the use of backpacks?
Yes.
How will bathrooms work? Will they be cleaned constantly?
So we are going to keep the 36 wing. We're going to keep the 2 upstairs bathrooms open, boys and girls, downstairs bathrooms open, boys and girls, and the 2 bathrooms down by the district office. Those will be the only bathrooms that will be able to be used, and we're going to highly discourage anyone leaving class during class. Obviously, if there's an emergency, those students will go to the nurse, but no one will be leaving class to use the bathroom unless it's an emergency, and that will be in the nurse's office. In between periods, we are going to have a staff member at the entrance to each of those bathrooms, and we talked about this today. The girls could be in there 3 at a time. There's 3 bathrooms in there. Gentlemen will only be able to be in 2 at a time because we can't social distance. There's only actually 1 stall bathroom.
All right, we've got one more question. Are you accepting students from neighboring districts, and how does that work? Interested in distance learning for a high school student?
We just don't have the room. So again, anybody that was here before has been accepted unless I've called you. And any faculty or staff member's child is also going to be allowed even if they don't live in the district.
Very relevant question. Young ladies may need access to a bathroom more frequently. Will they be allowed to be late to a class if necessary, since they will be asked to wait?
We've told all of our teachers and all of our staff that even though we're coming back, it's going to be different. It's better than what we did in the spring, but it's not going to be like it was prior to March 13th. It just can't be. So the answer to that is yes. Again, if people are abusing that, and it's pretty easy for us to find that out. If the same student is constantly coming to class late, we'll have a chat with them. But yes, I mean, if it's a legitimate reason that they were late, they're not going to be marked late to class.
Who is going to monitor the amount of people coming in and out of bathrooms?
So we're going to have a staff member at every bathroom. They haven't been designated yet, but we will have someone there in between every period. Oh, I did not, let me finish that. Tony asked me how we're going to disinfect those. So all the bathrooms, the 2 upstairs, the 2 downstairs, and the 2 by the district office will be disinfected after every period.
Let's see now. Will there be a limit to how many students can ride on each bus?
Yes. So we have all but 2 of our buses are 66 passengers, which that is 22 seats. So they can socially distance. Every person sits in a seat, and if you've been on the new buses, the seats are very high. So that's actually a barricade. So they're 6 feet apart on the bus and then barricaded by the person in front or behind them. And siblings can sit together. So some buses would have more than 22 if they have siblings on the bus with them.
Do you anticipate there's going to be any changes about who's going to be picking up who's like what kid on which bus route?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, we do not have transportation figured out yet. That's probably the biggest hurdle we have right now, and we're working at it. There are 2 or 3 buses right now that aren't full and some that are overloaded. So we may have to restructure some routes. Again, I ask and beg anybody that can drive their children to school, please do so. It will make a huge difference. I don't want to get to a week out from school and figure out that we can't open everybody here because we can't get everybody here. I don't want that to be a deterrent to us opening 5 days a week. If we can't solve the bus issue, then we're going to have to do similar to what other schools are doing and limit our numbers and only come, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So again, if you can drive your children to school and bring them home, that would be a huge help to us.
So first of all, will there be art?
There will be art
Okay.
in the classroom for elementary and in the art room for high school
And middle school?
and middle school.
Okay. And so one of the questions is about communal art supplies, and let's just talk about communal supplies in general.
Yeah, we're limiting, I'm not sure if it's made our website or Parent Square yet, but we have purchased all supplies for K through 8. So everybody's going to have their own markers, their own pencils, their own bookcases, their own everything. I wish I had brought a picture with you. The district office conference room looks like Staples. It has everything in it. Although most of it's from Walmart, it looks like a Staples store. So as for art, same thing. We're going to have to make sure that everyone has their own paintbrush, their own pencils, and everything that they need so they're not sharing anything. And anything that does have to be shared will certainly be disinfected before anyone else touches it.
Okay, so we have a question about students in quarantine who have to stay home. Is there any state funding for parents who will be losing income because they're staying home with their kids?
Right. Great question. To my knowledge, no. That would be something I would contact probably Lewis County to ask them. They would be the ones that the Lewis County government would be the ones that would know if there was funding, because the funding would probably come through the county. So I would contact them if that happened. And we may learn more about that. Every question hasn't been answered yet. So we may find out once this happens that there will be, but I can't answer that question now.
When will the detailed plan be available that includes all mitigation measures that will be taken and made available? When will this be made available?
So it is presently on our website. www.ccsdites.org. It's in the upper right-hand corner. And if you just click on that, that takes you to our plan. And that plan is a living document. As most of you probably know, the rules change frequently. So we'll have to be changing our rules as we get directions to do that. So as of today at 6:05, that plan is current. But again, you may get on it. It may say one thing today and something different tomorrow.
Question from a parent about pickup and drop off. What if a parent can drop off his or her kids but can't pick them up at the end of the day?
So certainly bringing them in the morning will help, but the problem with that is we still have to save a seat on that bus. So I can't put more people on that bus knowing that in the afternoon, if those same people that I put on the bus, the extra people that I had to put on the bus, it will help because we may be able to mix and match. You may be able to bring in the morning. Somebody may only be able to pick up in the afternoon. So certainly call us, let us know, because we may be able to make that help us.
Will students get in trouble if they socialize outside of school without maintaining social distance?
Gosh, yeah, I wish we could monitor that. I feel like we're going to be really safe in our school building. I'm concerned about people coming complacent. I think if you look around our country and where the hot spots are now is because people became complacent. And we really need to focus on keeping our kids safe. We will do the best job we can do here to keep our kids safe, and we just ask you to do the same. Live your life as normally as you can, but take all of the precautions that you can. Wear a mask when you're in a store. Do the best you can, because I feel like if we're going to get a positive case, the chances are it's probably going to be from someone relaxing outside of our building, either staff or student, becoming complacent and then bringing it into our building.
So this next question might be better asked of an art teacher, but let's put it out there anyway. It asks, do you know what art will look like for students who are doing remote learning?
I tried to be an art teacher once, but I'm just a stick figure guy, so I can't answer that. I know that Mrs. Hovenden would be happy to answer it. You can shoot her an email, call school. She's here quite a bit, so might be able to catch up with her.
I suppose it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Are there any plans for lockdowns and or fire drills?
Great question. Yes, we still have to have the required amount, but we don't have to do them all at once. We have to do them all on the same day, but not all at once. So we haven't worked through that plan yet, but I suspect what we'll do is release a few classes at a time from different parts of the building. So we may have one elementary go out, one middle school, one high school. As soon as they're back, we'll send the next out like that. I suspect that's what that'll look like, but we are required to have the same amount of fire drills and lockdowns.
Very good. If students live on the same road or in close proximity to another, can they carpool?
Boy, I want to say yes so they could free up our buses, but that's a social distancing question again. If they're masked and you have a large vehicle and they can sit both by the doors, we're not going to control that. So it would be an issue of distancing, and if someone were to become positive and there was contact tracing, then they would probably be someone that would be quarantined for 14 days. I'd love to say yes, but the right answer to that is probably no.
How will band and choir work?
I'm not a music teacher either. I'm not sure. I know we talked about possibly having chorus in small sections, and we probably, depending on how this goes, we probably will not have concerts. So they will sing sopranos together and altos together. Again, I'm not a music teacher. You can certainly call school and ask our music teacher those questions.
Will there be jazz band?
You're going to have to call about that too.
Okay. If siblings are getting on the bus and one has a fever, do the other siblings have to stay home even if they don't have a fever?
So we asked that question to public health, and no, a fever does not mean you're COVID positive. So that student that's staying home certainly would have to follow our protocol, and remember what that is. They have to either go to a doctor and be released, have a negative test, or stay home for 14 days. Now, obviously, if they go to the doctor or they get tested and they are positive, then yes, that the other siblings, all the siblings in the house at that point would have to stay home.
Okay. Is remote learning an option?
So remote learn, as mentioned earlier, we're live streaming all of our classes. I'll be honest, it's not going to be great. It will not be nearly as effective as being in school, and it will not look anything like it did in the spring. So they're basically going to be at their computer watching their teacher teach the class, but will not have the luxury of the teacher being able to come over to them and work with them. We have purchased some document cameras, so there'll be times that they can show the student the work on their computer, but nothing's going to replace being in the building. I do understand people's concerns of safety and respect their choice, but I really encourage everybody to come.
Are we planning on having a musical?
I'd love to have one, and again, it's going to have to be if things are relaxed in the spring and social distancing has been relaxed, because if not, obviously impossible to do that.
Same with wrestling?
Yeah, talk a little bit about sports. Every sport has been given either high risk, moderate risk, or low risk. I don't know what that means right now. I suspect they may allow low risk sports to take place, cross country, track and field, trying to think of all the ones, swimming without relays. There are sports in the low risk. Unfortunately, wrestling obviously is a high risk sport, along with football, soccer, some other ones that you can imagine that would be, people sweating and drooling and all of those things that happen in contact sports.
You had mentioned earlier the possibility of rapid testing. If this becomes available, will our students be tested without parent permission?
No, there'll be no. Well, I never say never. That is a CDC and a public health choice, and if public health says that schools are to random test, and we're directed to random test, then we will have to random test. Right now, the CDC and public health are not recommending random testing for public school students.
Okay. Field trips. Will they have to be socially distanced on field trips?
So right now, the thought is we will not have any, but we'll look into that as time goes on. Quite a few of them are in the spring, so it may change, but right now, no. Probably because most of the places we go wouldn't allow us to come anyway.
If a student has to stay home and that student doesn't have any internet, will a hotspot be issued?
Yes, as best we can. Again, if a lot of people stay home, I'll let you guys, our two tech people are here today doing a super job making this happen. So I believe they're giving me the nod that they have a lot of hotspots. So yes, the answer would be yes.
We'll do our best. If a student usually brings a lunch due to allergies or is a very picky eater, will they be allowed to bring it? And what if they forget it and mom and dad have to bring it? Will there be a, and then I think there was a typo. So if they forget a lunch,
Yep.
and mom and dad needs to bring it, what will that look like?
So we're asking all of our parents to limit every trip you have to make to school. The more people that come, the more chance we have something coming in. So unless it's an emergency, and I would say a student starving might be an emergency if they're not comfortable eating school food or whatever, you can certainly drop that off at the front door. You will have to have your temperature checked when you come in, but you can do that. Again, student forgot their book or whatever, we'll get them a book. Trying to keep as many people away from the building as we can. The thing that's concerning to me, and we're not going to let parents in the building, I know that first day of pre-K and kindergarten, and that separation anxiety is usually fairly intense, and we're going to ask for that to happen outside of our building. And it saddens me to think we have to do that, but again, we're trying to keep everybody safe.
Is school going to be open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday?
Yes, right now, unless we're told differently.
If random testing is required in the future, will the parents be made aware before the kids are tested?
Again, we'll follow whatever public health tells us to do. I would hope so.
Will school lunches be provided free of charge like last year? How will pickup work for appointments during the day?
So we're working on that, and we're hoping that can happen. Nicole Grandjean, who is our food service supervisor, is looking into that, and we're hoping that they continue to do that. If not, again, free and reduced will be free and reduced, and full pay will be full pay. Anybody that is remotely is staying home, we will have dates set when they can pick food up. It'll probably be once a week, similar. We won't be delivering. It'll be once a week, similar to what we have been doing. And if you are not free and reduced, but you are getting delivered or picking up, then you will have to pay for that.
Mr. Connell, where can people pick up a free or reduced lunch application?
At the district office, or once school starts, in Harley's office, the attendance office, as you walk in the front doors.
Okay. So one of the two main
Yep.
entrances?
Right now, until school start, well, either one. Better district office. We have 4 people there. There's always somebody there.
All right. We're out of questions.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everybody taking part tonight. Do we have a number, how many we have? And I know some people will be watching this another time. But again, thank you for taking part. I can assure you we will do everything in our power to keep your students safe, to keep our staff safe. And I look forward to the day that we can push these desks a little closer together and get back to what we used to call a normal school day. But it is what it is, and we will do our best and move forward, and we will be Copenhagen strong. Thanks again.